Hey guys, so for today's video I have another live finger and brush swatch video for you. And as you can tell, it is of the new Natasha Denona Retro palette. And this was a palette that as soon as I saw it, pretty much I knew I was going to buy it. And part of what I want to focus on in this video are kind of the names that are given to these palettes and to the shades in them. In particular, the reason why I wanted to purchase this palette, first of all, the color story is gorgeous. It's a very kind of everyday friendly color story, a lot of nice mauve tones in there that should work for a lot of different people, give you a nice everyday look. But there were two shades in particular that really stood out to me. One is the shade Andy, and that's my husband's name. And then the shade Vivienne, which was the name of my niece who passed away in infancy. So, you know, for sentimental reasons alone, I knew I had to have this palette. So I know a lot of people have kind of talked about this color story and talked about it being the retro palette when the mini retro doesn't really look a lot like it. I guess if you kind of cover up these two shades, you kind of see more of the similarity there. And the rumor anyway is that Natasha Denona may be kind of doing another midi palette that focuses more on these kind of greenish olivey tones. So for those of you who really loved these two shades in this palette, there may be hope for you yet. And so that brings me back to the kind of naming of this palette. So again, there is some similarity in shades, but I know a lot of people would have expected this color story to reflect this color story more. I think just by going by the shade names alone, this is the retro palette. So we have a lot of kind of like 60s inspired shade names like Rebellion, Swing, Groove, Psychedelic, Jude, Mod, Go-Go in particular. So anyone who knows me knows that I love a good theme, and I will buy makeup items for the name alone, because even though no one else will know what the name of that particular shade or whatever was, I do, and it I don't know, brings me joy. So I was wearing this lipstick in my FabFitFun video recently. This is the NARS Vivienne shade. So I purchased that, obviously. This is actually the correct spelling, which I'll come back to in a minute. So I'm not a huge expert in like the 60s or 70s color stories in terms of makeup. So I can kind of take Natasha at her word, I guess, that these reflect that kind of time period in the makeup and everything. But I just thought I would kind of compare this side by side, and then also look at the Love palette, which may still be on sale at Sephora, I'm not sure. So I know a lot of people have compared these two side by side. But then we also can look at the Mini Love, and I guess overall there aren't any shades in this Mini Love that I would think I'd have to like cover up to kind of make this work together. But as you know, it's not like she's pulling 5 shades from this larger palette and putting them in a mini. They are different shades. And then finally I will show you the Glam palette, which was another one that as soon as I saw it, I wanted to purchase it. That was more so for this silly little star on the outer package, and then this being a much more kind of neutral, cool color story than she had come out with before. And I can't remember which came first, the mini Glam or the larger one. I want to say it was the mini. So for both the Glam and the retro palettes, I think the mini came first. With the Love palette, the midi actually came first and then followed by the mini. So there really isn't any kind of rhyme or reason to the order she releases things. I think she just, I don't know, comes up with things that she likes and goes with it. So I did purchase this one for the color story, and like I said, that stupid little star on the cover really appealed to me. But one of the things that Natasha got a lot of flack for with this palette is, as you can see, the shades are named things like crease, transition, lash line, blend. So they're named kind of what their intended use is, and especially for darker complexions, not everyone would be able to use that shade in the crease, for example, or that as a transition. This lash line shade, which you could use to kind of smoke out the lash line on some people, that might be more of a crease shade on some others. So for that reason, this kind of naming story was kind of a miss, but then also you didn't have any kind of fun shade names either. So that is the Glam, and these shades in the mini Glam were Golden Flesh, Harlow, Anho, Seed, and Faye, I believe. She did a fun thing with the mini Love in that the shades are called You Are My True and Love. So if you read them from left to right, it's You Are My True Love, which was cute. And then going back to this Love palette, you had kind of very romantic themed shades like Valentine, Heart, Pure Love, Trust, Transparent, etc. So definitely had a theme with that one. So I don't know if it was because of the criticism with the way that she named the shades in this palette, or if it was because she was reusing some shades in this palette that caused her to kind of abandon that approach. In this retro palette, the shades Amara, Helio, and Nude Mauve, which are kind of more neutral, I think, compared to some of the other more pinky or purpley tones in here. These are all from the Lila palette, the larger one. And that palette, I think, is still available like on the Sephora website and on the Natasha Denona website, but I think she may be discontinuing that eventually. So that palette is one of the larger palettes that's kind of in this style of packaging. This is the gold palette, not the Lila, but it's not kind of my favorite design. It's what she came out with before she started making palettes in this kind of hard plastic. So I guess I can understand if she wanted to kind of keep 3 of her favorite shades in the Lila palette in her kind of more current format for palettes. This is the midi size, which retails for $65, and I think this is a lot of people's favorite size of palette because it's like half the price of the larger ones and you're still getting 15 shades, so you have a lot of variety here. And it's nice and sturdy plastic. There's a huge mirror that will kind of stay upright, and you can actually pop the shades out on the back. So I'll just demo that for you really quickly. Speaking of her reusing those shades though, she doesn't say that on the product page on her website. So that is kind of disappointing. On some palettes, I think like on the mini retro, she mentions that some of these, like Galaxia, I think was originally in the Star palette. So on that product page, she identified which shades were new and which ones were repeats. So I appreciate that. So I don't necessarily think it's anything kind of nefarious. It might just be sloppy work on the part of whoever wrote the description and everything. I did see, coming back to that Vivienne shade, on the Natasha Denona website, they actually spell it V-I-V-A-N-N-E instead of E-N-N-E. So like I said, I think part of it might just be a little sloppy. So I ordered mine from Sephora, and just to quickly show you, this is how it comes packaged. It comes in an outer cardboard box. I think if you buy it in store, you would just get this kind of unicarton but this helps keep it a little bit more protected. It has this kind of inner corrugated sleeve. So I don't know if it's cheaper to package the ones that are being shipped like that and then not have any additional packaging inside the unicarton. I'm not really sure. But I will just give you a kind of close-up look at the back. So it's made in Italy. It says preservative-free, alcohol-free, mineral oil-free, which is interesting, not tested on animals. Keep out of reach of children. Okay, and this was one thing I did want to call out because we are going to be doing some swatches. So for the matte shadows, it says apply with fluffy eyeshadow brushes to blend or detail brushes for precision. And for the metallic, duochrome, and crystal shades, it says apply with dense eyeshadow brushes for a subtle finish. For high payoff or foiled finish, apply with a damp eyeshadow brush. That's like a single plural issue. Apply with a damp eyeshadow brush or with the tip of your finger. And then it has all the different shades, and those letters after the shade will indicate the type of formula that shadow is. Okay, so that's it for the packaging. I'll go ahead and let you look at the pretty shadows here while I read a little bit about it. So it says that the Retro Eyeshadow Palette is the continuation of the best-selling Mini Retro Eyeshadow Palette, which again is that one right there, now as a midi-sized palette, featuring 15 romantic burgundy and mauve shades combined with gray browns, taupes, dusty roses, and vintage pinks. Perfect to create romantic, retro-inspired looks. The Retro Eyeshadow Palette is the retro version of the cult favorite Glam Eyeshadow Palette. So it's like she's trying to do a lot of things here, right? Like it's a continuation of this retro palette, and she's going on the retro theme to like name all of these shades. I don't know how long this palette had been in development, but I feel like she could have really capitalized on the like Regency core, like that more so than, I guess, the 60s is what I think of when I look at these colors. You know, I would think 60s would be a lot more kind of bright blues and greens, but she's done a lot of different colorful palettes recently. And again, she's going off this as a kind of neutral palette, and I'm sure this palette is also kind of a bestseller for her, but then she's going with the kind of romantic look in a way of the Love palette. So like I said, I'm just kind of interested in thinking through kind of why she's named things the way that she has. Okay, so the benefits, it's supposed to provide maximum color payoff with minimal effort, blending seamlessly to achieve vibrant, ultra-pigmented, long-lasting looks. These rich, pressed, pigmented shadows leave the skin with an optimum texture and comfortable all-day wear. Shades and formulas were hand-designed by world-renowned makeup artist Natasha Denona. Made with the highest quality pure color pigments, dazzling chroma crystals, and luminous mineral pearls, it's buttery smooth. I like copied from the website and put it into my phone, and there's like a apostrophe that shouldn't be there. Okay. It's buttery smooth, hydrating eyeshadow formula, wears beautifully on any skin type and skin tone. Cruelty-free, paraben-free, made in Italy. So just to say what the Mini Retro is supposed to be, it says the Mini palette features 5 dreamy colors for romantic retro looks. And I don't know if this has changed in the wake of this or if it was always this language. For romantic retro looks, the shades include a dazzling neutral duochrome, a velvety metallic gray, 2 creamy neutral mattes, and a rosy pink metallic, inspired by the color theme of the 60s. Perfect for a soft pastel look and everyday wear. And this one shade, yeah, is actually called 60s, this greenish gray. That was one of the new shades created for this palette, that matte. Okay, so I'll describe each shade as I swatch them and the different finishes and descriptions and all that. So let's talk about the tools I will be using. So I try to keep this consistent across different palette swatch videos. So I have the Lorac Behind the Scenes Eye Primer, which is easy to dispense, and I, for some reason, have a lot of these, so I put down a primer. And then for the mattes, I have the Rephr number 2 brush, which is, I think, a dupe of the MAC 239, so it's a natural hair little shader. And then for the shimmers, I have the Rephr number 21 brush, which I want to say is the MAC 242, and I can't remember if this is a blend of natural and synthetic or just synthetic. But anyway, that is kind of made more for creams and shimmers. And then I have the Tarte Maracuja Miracle Mist to dampen the brush. Of course, my fingers to swatch. And then I have the Veramona Color Switch to remove shadow in between. I think because I'm planning to use this damp, I might have to just kind of wipe it off on a towel. I might also try using this little this little guy from Sigma. This was a sample of that glove that they had made once upon a time. I don't know if they still sell it or not, but the glove was designed to help you clean your brushes. I know they've come out with a new little oval that is kind of similar in design, so I think Stephanie Marie has talked about that as being something that she's enjoyed using. So I don't know, I might play around with that too. Okay, so is there anything else I need to say before we get started? I don't think so. So my lights, by the way, I have 2 LED lights looking kind of directly down at my work surface here. They're both set at 35% and 3500K. So kind of on the warmer spectrum, I guess, but I've done the white balance against this. So I think that's probably as good as I can get it from a technical standpoint, given what I know, which admittedly is not, it's not a lot. It's also about 6:45 in, I guess, the first week of September. So there's some natural light here. But I'm not doing this in front of a window or anything like that. Okay, so I think I'm going to do 1 row at a time, and hopefully I will be able to kind of fit everything on my arm. So going into the first shade, which is Glitz. This is a duochrome cool baby pink with a champagne shift. So this is the DC or duochrome formulation. And we'll do a dry brush first. So you can see it doesn't really pick up a whole lot. If you don't enjoy using your fingers to apply eyeshadow, I would recommend getting a pack of those little... Okay, so I just dampened the brush. I would recommend getting a pack of those like sponge tip applicators that you sometimes get with palettes. Those I think have the best... Those I think are the most similar to a finger. So you can see a finger definitely gives you the best payoff there. Okay, so next we have my husband's shade. So this is Andy, and this is described as a matte taupe lilac cream powder. So these are supposed to have a cream to powder finish. So this cream to powder formula is supposed to make it a little bit easier to blend. I think I'm going to treat these as mattes and go in with this brush. Which I think does give you good color payoff with a brush, and this is a dry brush. Okay, so next up we have Jude, which Makes me think of the Beatles song every time I see or hear that shade name. It's really beautiful, kind of foiled metallic. So this is just a metallic warm taupe, is how they describe that one. Okay, so let's go in with, I guess, a mostly dry brush. I think this one behaves a little bit better with a quote-unquote dry brush than the duochrome. So I wet the brush. I think you get a little bit more depth of color with the wet brush, but I think that one is pretty beautiful either way. Okay, so going in next into Maud, and Maud is a matte off-white with pink undertone. So I think light matte shades like that are always a little bit difficult to formulate well. I'm a little surprised that she didn't make that one a cream to powder. Okay, so going in with this now kind of stained looking brush, you can see it has a bit of kick up with that one. But this is the kind of shade I would just kind of put all over the lid. You can probably tap it off. Luckily, it's not like a super dark shade that is going to cause a lot of trouble if you have fallout. And I think this is working pretty well. I'm wondering if I should look into that Sigma one now, or the dedicated kind of color switch. Okay, so Vivienne is the last one here. So this is a matte light pink nude cream powder. So Vivienne and Andy, funnily enough, have the same formula. And you can see there isn't as much kind of kick up with that formula. I don't know if it's my brush or what, but it looks a little kind of discolored in the pan. Hopefully you can kind of see that. I don't know if that's just kind of where I've removed product or what, but okie dokie. All right. Okay, so that's one last look at the shades of the first row. Again, this is from top left to right. This is Glitz, Finger, Dry, Wet. This is Andy, Finger, Andy, Brush. This is Jude, Finger, Jude, Dry, and Jude, Wet. This is Maud, Finger, and Maud, Brush. And that is Vivienne, Finger, and Vivienne, Brush. Okay, so once I've wiped off my arm with a micellar wipe, I'm going to reapply the primer. Okay, and again, after, I don't know, 20 seconds or so, letting that kind of hopefully set, I'm going to go into row 2 here. So the first shade is Groove. So she describes this as a matte, medium, dark, warm maroon. And this is a creamy matte or CM formula, which is not kind of cooperating on my arm there very well. So I think that one actually maybe applies better with a brush. I'm gonna swatch it on this arm really quickly, which doesn't have any primer. I mean, I think this is still gonna be one that you wanna kind of pat on. It just doesn't really seem to want to kind of blend out evenly. Okay, so the next one is, it's Opart, not Apart, it's Opart, which I'm not really sure what that means. So this one is a matte dark taupe cream powder. And you can see the cream to powder formula right next to a matte there. Kind of a poopy brown shade, if you ask me. So I think that formula has a little bit more of a sheen to it as well. All right, so going next into Psychedelic. This is a warm baby pink with multicolor sparks topper. And I think this is the only shadow with this formula in the palette. So that feels nice and smooth going on there. For being a topper shade, it does seem to have a little bit more kind of underlying pigment to it. So going in with a dry brush, I mean, that's not bad, but you're definitely going to get more opacity and payoff with your finger. So this is the wet brush. I think that does help build it up a little bit more as well. Okay, so next up we have Go Go, which is a matte medium warm rose cream powder. So that's a really nice application there. I didn't go through and kind of count how many cream powder formulas there are and how many mattes. I might do that in editing and put it down below. I'm just kind of curious which she favored. So that is the brush application. So again, you can definitely get kind of the same opacity and payoff, but you might just have to, you know, take the time to kind of pack it on and build it up. Okay, so finally for this row, we have Patty, which is a metallic medium nude rose copper. Okay, so going with my dry brush here. So that's not terrible with a dry brush. I think it might be just a tad shinier and maybe darker with the wet brush. But I think all three of those are pretty good. So starting again with the beginning of this row, that is Groove, Finger, Groove, Brush, Opart, Finger, Opart, Brush, Psychedelic, Finger, Psychedelic, Dry Brush, Psychedelic, Wet Brush, Go-Go Finger Go-Go Brush. Was it Go-Go Gadget?
I'm coming up after you. Go-Go Gadget Arms.
Anyway, Patty Finger, Patty Dry Brush, and Patty Wet Brush. So again, that is the second row, and I think that Groove shade is the only one that kind of gave me trouble. But for me anyway, I think that's probably a shade that I'll just use to kind of put a little bit in the outer corner. So I don't think that's a shade I'll probably try to blend too much. Okay, so going into row 3, again, I applied fresh coat of primer and just kind of let that set for a little bit. So the first shade here is Swing, and she describes it as a metallic, medium dark, cool maroon. So that's a really gorgeous shade, and if you wanted to maybe get a similar color to Groove and maybe one that will kind of blend with a brush a little bit easier, you're not averse to using a metallic shade, it might be worthwhile going in with Swing here. So even a dry brush, I think that did pretty well. And then going in with a wet brush. Not a whole lot of difference there. Okay, so next up we have Nude Mauve, which is one of the shades in the Lila palette. This is a matte, medium light, neutral nude. And this is her creamy matte formula. So I think that one does a little bit better than the other mattes. Does have a bit of kick up, so I think that's kind of one major plus in terms of the cream to powder formula, is that you just get less kick up. But I think that one swatches pretty well with the brush. And again, I'll just do a swatch over a bare arm without any primer for comparison's sake. Okay, so next up we have the shade Rebellion, which is a matte medium burgundy cream powder. This almost seems like, I don't know, like a lip product almost. That would be interesting if Natasha Denona came out with that kind of product, because I think like Ciate came out with it not too long ago. And I mean, MAC has their like Powder Kiss lipsticks. So that is Rebellion. That product does have carmine, so this is not a vegan palette. I was just curious what kind of dyes or pigments were used in that particular shade. I don't know that it's safe to, you know, put it on the lips, but I was just curious. Okay, so let's go into the next to last shade. This is Helio. It's a metallic taupe nude, and you can see it's a little flaky there. This is another one that is from the Lila palette. So it's a pretty stunning shade. Okay, so pick up some of this on the dry. And then on the wet, I think if you do use this shade, I think you might want to do your eyes first, just because I feel like you might get a bit of a kind of crumbly mess. Very pretty though. And then last but not least, we have Amara. So I think I can just about fit 2 more swatches in. And as we get closer to my wrist here, the skin does kind of change a bit. Might swatch that one on the other arm as well. So Amara, again, it's from the Lila palette. This is a matte, medium cool, vintage rosewood. And this is, again, the creamy matte formula. So, I'll just give this one a swatch on this arm as well. I don't think this one does as well with the finger swatch, which I think I said in a video recently talking about Vivienne palettes. Some shadows are formulated to swatch well, but that doesn't mean that they will kind of perform well on the eyes. So again, this is Swing, Finger, Dry Brush, and Wet Brush. This is Nude Mauve, Finger, Brush. This is Rebellion, Finger, Brush. This is Helio, Finger, Dry Brush, Wet Brush. And Amara, Finger, and Brush. So I think all of the ones on that row did pretty well. So I'll give you one more look at row 3. And while I am removing that row, I'll give you a close-up at how the shadows look after all that swatching. So that's it, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. I am not sad that I picked this up at all. I haven't put it on my eyes yet, but from what I can tell from the swatches, I think I will be happy with how everything turns out. And I know there have been a lot of videos about this palette already, review videos, doing different looks, that sort of thing. But I hope seeing swatches of the different ways you can apply these shadows helped you in making your purchasing decision. So I think that is going to do it. Let me know if you have any questions down below. And please subscribe if you haven't already, if you like this type of content. So I hope you guys are staying very safe and healthy out there, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.